Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Zoran Stančič and I'm head of the Representation Office of the European Commission in Slovenia. I'd like to welcome you to the House of the European Union. It is a great pleasure for me to be the moderator of the first session of the first panel discussion. This is a very important conference about collaborative economy, and I am very pleased that you accepted our invitation in such a great number. This conference has been organized by the Representation Office together with the Ministry of Public Administration and the Slovenian Press Agency. Now, why the decision to organize this conference? As you know, European Commission opinion that even today, collaborative economy generates 25 billion euro every year, and until 2025, it should grow to about 500 billion. In this situation, it is quite clear that things are changing. But the fact is that we still don't have answers to all questions that we are coming across today. And it was the objective of this conference to ask those questions and to get answers to them. We are going to start with a series of panels. And in the first one, we are hosting three very important persons. First is Mr. Ansip, Vice President of the European Commission, Mr. Boris Koprivnikar, who is Minister of Public Administration, and Mr. Počivalšek, who is Minister for Economic Development and Technology. With this, I suggest that we kick off. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ansip first. Mr. Ansip, the floor is yours.
Dobro jutro. I'm really happy to be here in Ljubljana. I'm impressed because of those rapid developments you had in digital fields according to Digital Economy and Society Index. So developments were here in Slovenia during the last couple of years were really rapid ones, and I'm impressed about the speed you were able to implement e-invoices. Maybe you are not thinking about those issues, but you implemented those e-invoices, and this rank now in the European Union is number 3, but practically on the same level with those top 2. In Denmark, they were able to save, just because of e-invoices, in public sector 150 million euros a year, and for private sector 50 million euros a year. So I think everybody in the European Union has to take lessons from Slovenia in this meaning. Your government is doing really good job. But today, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, we will talk about collaborative economy. Many of us have probably gone online to book a summer house or a car journey, perhaps a cleaning, gardening, or handyman service. Maybe concert tickets or even holidays for a pet. We may not be aware that we are taking part in the collaborative economy. New services and platforms are popping up all the time. We are only limited by our imagination. The concept is not new. What is new is the technology which allows these exchanges to happen. Just think how much has changed since eBay was launched in 1995. For many, This was a transformation in how to gain access to goods. People began to see different, interesting and efficient ways of buying and selling. The market for this quickly went international, powered by technology. The influential 20th century economist Josep Schumpeter wrote that what was more relevant than competition in its ordinary sense was competition coming from, and I quote, the new commodity, the new technology, the new source of supply, the new type of organization. Schumpeter wrote that 75 years ago. His words seem to have come true. The growth we see today in the collaborative economy is remarkable as it is rapid. Business and consumer interests both remain strong. It has come a long way from being just an intriguing headline to being the default choice for younger consumers today. It will inevitably become a major part of the global economy. There are many opportunities, and there are probably as many challenges. Firstly, the opportunities for people, businesses, for Europe's wider economy. Consumers can enjoy new services, more availability, choice, and lower prices. They can also become micro-entrepreneurs themselves, offering services to generate extra income. Almost 1/3 of people who have used collaborative platforms have also provided a service there at least once. Traditional businesses can create new sales channels and gain access to new potential customers. For the wider economy, innovative new business models have a high potential to contribute to Europe's competitiveness, employment, and economic growth. But while this sector has huge potential, it is still in a development stage. Its scale and speed of growth mean that there are still some regulatory gray areas, some blurred lines, and sometimes uncertainty over the rules. If we are to take the most of the opportunities of the collaborative economy, and I'm convinced we should in our own best interest, then it must be stimulated and developed in a responsible way. That means making sure that taxes are paid, that fair working conditions are in place, along with adequate and sustainable consumer and social protection. On tax, for example, we need cooperation between tax authorities and the businesses themselves. I know that this is already happening in some countries, or at least being planned with ride-sharing platforms. This is so that drivers can meet their tax obligations effectively and with minimum effort. It shows that solutions can be found. I do not consider protectionist moves to block new services to be a valid alternative solution. These challenges are ones that Europe should address together. We need common answers to some common issues. It is why today's conference is so important, where everyone involved can discuss the issues: regulators, experts, platform businesses, and consumers. Unfortunately, the landscape for regulation and practice on the ground is far from uniform across Europe. This is holding back the development of the collaborative economy. In the meantime, we are all losing out. There is increased regulatory fragmentation between EU countries, and also inside them. Some impose restrictive laws. In others, there is legal uncertainty on how EU rules apply. Another issue is that different service sectors vary in their opportunities and challenges. Put that together with sector-specific rules and laws, and there is even more risk of fragmentation. To avoid that happening, the Commission plans a sector-by-sector approach to make sure Europe's collaborative economy develops in a balanced way. This year, we will focus on short-term accommodation rental services, the largest collaborative services sector. It is provided by platforms like HomeAway.com, Airbnb, and Alter Keys for people offering their apartment or a spare room for short-term rentals. Our aim is to set guiding policy principles that we could all agree to consider wherever there is a policy or regulation to be drawn up for the sector. This approach ensures alignment with EU law and avoids national differences. Last June, the Commission gave some clarity on applicable rules and how to avoid regulatory fragmentation. Our communication looked at 5 areas: market access requirements, liability, consumer law, employment, and taxation. And we decided against proposing extra rules at this stage. Why? This is a dynamic sector which is evolving rapidly, but it is still in its infancy. The worst thing would be to stifle innovation. Yes, we have to be aware of potential pitfalls and problem areas. For that reason, we will be monitoring the sector carefully. As with so many other emerging digital areas, Europe has great talent and entrepreneurship, promising startups in all countries. I will meet some here in Ljubljana later today. That should be encouraged, certainly from the regulatory point of view. It is also in everyone's interest to cut red tape. So for now, we encourage EU countries to take the specific nature of issues of the collaborative economy into account. We ask these platforms to act responsibly, to engage with governments on issues like taxation, to put measures in place to increase consumer trust. But certain EU rules are already clear. Any regulation that limits market access must be justified and proportionate. Restrictions cannot favor one business model over another, so acting to protect existing models is no reason. And tax rules are there for a reason, to be complied with. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to see that most EU countries are developing national plans to address the collaborative economy or introducing sector-specific legislation. We welcome some of these developments and will continue to monitor them. However, some countries are also adopting policies that may lead to bans of certain collaborative economy activities. This, of course, threatens Europe's emerging digital single market. I believe it is important to create the right environment for the collaborative economy to develop in a balanced way. And I know it is possible to do so. That means without disregarding consumer and employee protection. without favoring one business model over another. That way, we can all make the best use of the opportunities that it offers. I'm pleased to see that Slovenia is a pioneer country in this sector, working closely together across different ministers for a coherent and balanced regulatory approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President Ansip. So I propose that we now continue, and I would like to invite to the floor Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Public Administration, Mr. Boris Koprivnikar. Please, Mr. Koprivnikar.
Slovenščina. Ja. Najprej hvala za povabilo.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you, Commissioner, for your kind words. We are pleased to see that our systematic hard work for accelerated digitalization and smart use of digitalization products is being recognized in the international environment as well. And this is because we are looking for solutions that are good for people, for businesses, and we are looking solutions in a way that we are working with everyone at the national level and also at the international level, because we are looking for solutions that we can all use and benefit from. Maybe it is interesting to compare ourselves to Estonia, the country where the Commissioner comes from. They're both developed countries, and I think that in a digital era, being small is an advantage because we can respond to change quicker. We believe that it is good to be innovative, but that's not enough. It is urgent that we adapt. Change is here, and we have to face it. We are speaking about accelerated digital transformation. We see various digital technologies, but we need to understand that digital transformation is just a tool. The result of such transformation is collaborative economy. In other words, a different way of organizing our lives, our work, and also learning and working. These are the results, because this new economy will bring new ways of working together, and this is what Vice President was talking about. So, collaborative economy and the platforms are here, and the question is not whether this is good or bad. The thing is, the platforms are coming, and people like them, and this is why they're using them. And it is not up to politicians to judge what to do. It is our task to organize and to govern these platforms, because people are already using them. And they're using them because they are a simple way of accessing services and goods. It's a simple way to organizing one's business, where you don't necessarily need all resources like in the past. If you want to carry out a certain activity, you can simply use platforms and generate a service, a product on the market, which is the result of collaborative economy. In this way, you can be faster, more efficient, and I see enormous opportunities here. Opportunities lie in accelerated development of the economy, development of digital economies, although I don't want to make a distinction between traditional and digital economy, because we are all using digitalization as a shared common language. These platforms are also bringing something new to our citizens, new opportunities for new activities, for income, and also for fast learning and adaptation to change in our environment. This simpler and less expensive access is something that works, and this is why within our national administrations we have to understand that we'll have to organize and govern this sector, as Vice President said. However, we should not jump the gun. We should wait to first understand how these models work, what are the pitfalls, what are the opportunities. And this conference today is particularly important for me because we want to open issues. you first have to understand. You cannot govern something that you don't understand. And for me, there is a big challenge for us politicians as well ahead of us, because we are quite good when it comes to governing the traditional way of living in our country and at the EU level. However, when we try to organize how our citizens get their driver's license, how they can travel, we are good at that, but when we move to digital way of living, which is actually a reflection of everything that is happening today, there we are lacking knowledge, and therefore we are not efficient enough. And this is one of the challenges of all future societies, alliances and organizations. We need to provide for opportunities, but also competitiveness and fairness. And in conclusion, let me reiterate what Vice President said. What are the key areas that we need to govern as part of collaborative economy? We have to protect workers. If someone is working in a company and has a contract, it is crystal clear who will pay for social security and so on. But what happens to a worker who works via an online platform? How is such worker protected? Is this not a precarious job? And here we need to protect such workers. Secondly, we need to protect consumers and competition. Someone who is using online platforms, ordering services online, maybe it should be pointed out that Europe differs from United States, where most platforms are created. Here, the responsibility for what is on the market is much bigger. So you cannot just transfer the liability to consumers and say, well, if you chose this service, you are responsible. No, the state has the responsibility to provide a certain level of consumer protection, not just when it comes to traditional buying, but also when it comes to buying online. And the third stakeholder that needs to be protected is the state. Because value added generated online is value added just as in traditional sales. So where are taxes? Where does the government get its share so that it can provide for all the structures that are offered to citizens? Because someone who works for a global corporation and lives in Slovenia is using our roads, is using our social system. So who will he or she pay taxes to? Will he or she pay taxes to that country where the global corporation is headquartered, or will he or she pay taxes to Slovenia? And these are questions that we still don't have answers to, but it is important to know that we understand these questions and that we are looking for solutions, and solutions should not divide Europe, but bring it together, because this is the only way how European Union can be successful and how Europe can be more successful on a global level in a rapidly changing world. So I would like to invite you to participate in the discussion and to provide your views and comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I would now like to ask the Minister of the Economy to take the floor, Mr. Zdravko Počivalšek. The Ministry of Economy, Development and Technology is also the head of the intersectoral working group on collaborative economy in Slovenia. Thank you very much, Commissioner Andrus Ansip, dear colleague, Mr. Koprivnikar, Mr. Stančič, ladies and gentlemen. I have to say that it's a great honor and pleasure for me to be able to participate here at this conference on the collaborative economy today. Digital technologies are changing the way of life, and they're becoming an ever increasingly important segment of the economy and of society at large. This includes the emergence of new business models which allow for the use or purchase of goods and services via web platforms, which we call the collaborative economy. Briefly, the collaborative economy is about the philosophy of sharing, of co-use, of using my goods and my services with as little cost and as little regulation and intermediaries. Due to the high-paced changes in digitalization, we are also following very fast-paced changes in business models, and usually these changes are quicker than the ability of regulatory adaptation of national legislations, meaning that very important political and also legal questions are being raised. New business models have been covering various areas: passenger transportation, tourism, food services, catering, crowd financing, web streaming, then also care of animals at home, and they're an opportunity for everyone. A very important feature is that individuals are the persons who are offering these services on a time-to-time basis. So natural persons, micro companies and micro entrepreneurs are also using and offering collaborative platforms on an increased level. Some of our providers are now very much at home on the global market, and their common feature is that this basic idea of collaboration turned into a business model, in many cases even into a multinational company. The Slovenian government is well aware of the positive aspects of these new business models of the collaborative economy, and we're also aware of the various traps that this brings to the Slovenian economy. The main task of our government is to make sure that we have the necessary regulation of the new business models and to provide for the conditions for their functioning. At the same time, the government also has to provide for the fact that these new business practices don't become some sort of parallel economy, or even worse, for a collaborative economy to become the grey economy, as it is called, and a source of illegal employment. What we have to provide for is equal access to the market, equal to existing companies, thus dealing away with disloyal competition. Secondly, provide for consumer protection. Thirdly, provide for the respect of national labor legislation. And fourthly, to provide for commensurate tax burdens and competitive conditions for these companies. To this end, the government established an intersectoral working group on the collaborative economy last year, the task of which is to look at new ways of working, at the new economy and on web platforms, and also to look at the needs in terms of coordinating taxes and labor law. What is most important is to adopt the most important regulations that we need for these new business models and to provide for legal business activity of all participants. Certain activities, as you've heard, are also being undertaken at EU level, but the European Commission currently believes that this is an area that can be dealt with within national legislation. The Commission is therefore leaving the initiative to individual member states, and of course approaches differ very much here. Regarding the regulation of new business models that are web-based in Slovenia, here we will follow the trends in the European Union. We will provide for the conditions for the operation of these companies on web platforms. We're also going to provide for the right conditions for these platforms to be able to be established in Slovenia, and first and foremost we're going to regulate the operations of these collaborative economy businesses in line with legislation. The collaborative economy is here. It is on the increase, and it is not something we can shut our eyes from. It is up to us now to manage these new challenges in an advantageous way in our economy, and in a way that is going to benefit all key stakeholders. I'm sure that today's discussion will also be of great assistance in this context, and I will, of course, very much like to participate in the discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we now have an opportunity for questions for our two ministers and for the Commission Vice President. Of course, we'd like to ask you to introduce yourself, tell us who you are and who you represent.
Among others, digital champion for Slovenia, and otherwise I'm in artificial intelligence. So one thing which I'm seeing, not just in relationship with this collaborative economy, but also with other technological advances which are still coming, which we are not even addressing today, is this big gap between so how to regulate the whole area on one side and technological advances which are happening, right? So while speaking, right, things are happening in the technological field, but regulation typically happens too late. So that's why we are talking today about about the gray economy and all these other things. So now my question would be how to close this gap, right? So if regulator and technology would be aligned or in sync, like not too big time gap, then many things would be way easier. So question would be, well, how to close this gap in, let's say, practical and efficient way.
Thank you very much for this question. But yeah, as you said, this problem is not just collected with collaborative or platform economy. Always when there are some new phenomena, then some people, they would like to start with the regulations. And majority of those people who would like to start with regulating those processes, they would like to prohibit those new phenomena. But I would like to state it very clearly. This Commission does not have plans to kill innovations over regulating platforms, for example. So if there is a new phenomena, at first we have to collect information. Talking about collaborative economy, sharing economy platforms, the same approach also in the United States. They are collecting evidence, information, and if there is a need, they are ready to intervene with the regulation, and then we have to be ready to intervene with the regulations. We have to understand that progress will go on anyway. With us, without us, progress will go on anyway. You're not able to stop progress if somebody really wants to stop progress. So we have to adapt, we have to support innovations, and of course we have to pay attention on different side effects and to deal with those effects. So now everywhere, not only in Europe but around the world, the really hot topic is connected with robots. Some people are afraid robots, they will take our jobs. Some people, they said digitization will take our jobs. So, and of course, for some people, the answer is simple. We have to prohibit, or if those activities, or if we are not able to prohibit at least, then we have to tax robots, for example. So, aim of taxation is not just to collect more money for the government to increase salaries of teachers or policemen. Aim of taxes is also to have influence on some kind of processes. And I'm ready to accept that we have to tax bad habits, for example, smoking, drinking alcoholic drinks, or waste of natural resources. But to tax progress, to slow down progress with taxes, it's not acceptable for me. So we have to be flexible. No simple solution. So this gig economy existed thousands of years ago already. So there is a need to hire somebody not officially pay for services without paying taxes, but if this is not only about some cases, but this is a new phenomenon, then we have to think about taxes also. I'm talking about collaborative economy, as I said already. We know that in some countries, those sharing economy platforms, also Uber, Taxify, for example, providing ride sharing, they are working closely together with tax departments. In the country I know best, they created an app which allows practically to pay those taxes by service providers online. And I would like to say that practically no difference between traditional service providers and then those new service providers. Nobody wants to pay taxes. But it has to be easy to pay taxes. And of course, all the people, all the businesses, they have to be treated equally. They have to pay taxes. So we have to work with those issues, but to kill innovations, to stop progress, it's not our option. Thank you.
Hvala lepa, podpredsednik Ansip. Minister Koprivnikar, prosim.
Thank you very much, Vice President Ansip.
Yes,
Minister
if I try to
Koprivnikar.
add something to that question is, as you already said, but what we need to speed up this gap between technology development and regulation is slower. It's smaller. First, we have to be innovative also in the regulatory way. So we have to experiment. We have to try to regulate and then compare and cooperate and see in that country they try this, in that country they try that, and what works best, and this is the practice. So going from the principle to think it through detailedly in the governmental way and then accept the legislation, it's not working anymore. It's too slow. So we have to experiment also in that field. So it's important that we understand also in collaborative economy simple principles. Who is the buyer? Who is the seller? Who is the platform? And then we have 1,000 variations. But if you keep it simple, also the regulation, in any kind of collaborative economy, you can find those key triggers. And you know if there is intermediate someone, this is where you connect on the tax office. If there is someone who is only connecting the buyer and seller is different than someone who is really regulating and deciding about the price and everything else. And there are some key principles. And if we keep regulation simple, then it is possible also to bring some order and not kill innovation. And for example, when you were talking about not killing innovation, it's one of the approaches that we are trying also to implement in our public procurement or public services. For example, we are very strongly behind the idea that we don't, through public procurements, buy things, but that we procure what kind of a need or problem do we have, and this is the procurement. And then the new technologies, new companies will bring you the innovative solutions. And this is also the public procurement. For example, we signed not long ago a contract with the electrical car sharing company, which is now used from public servants. So it's not that we need cars, we need mobility. And this was bought, signed the contract, and we are, I think, the first government who uses the electrical car sharing for public servants. So this is the way how innovation can go with the existing systems if you go down to the basic principles. And then it's possible to regulate it.
Hvala lepa. Minister Počivalšek, tudi vi ste želeli, prosim.
Thank you very much, Minister Počivalšek. You also wanted the floor. Yes, I think we're quite lucky that the development of digital technologies and new business models is so very fast that the regulatory part of the government, at least in our country, is unable to catch up. We are an over-regulated society, and I think that had we joined this process early on, we would have put the brakes on this process of innovation. But now that this innovation has gone gone up to quite a very high level. I'm pretty sure that our regulatory work now will be able to contribute to regulating those areas that do need to be regulated. So like I said, we need the same conditions of access, consumer protection, labor legislation, and tax policy, of course. These are the areas that need to be covered. And I think that in some way, by regulating these issues with not too many details, we will be able to make sure that the collaborative economy will develop further. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to conclude this introductory part. I would suggest that we thank all our panelists once again for this introductory session, and at the same time I would also like to give the floor to the moderator of our next panel, Mrs. Kolenc. It is time for us to set up the new panel and carry on working.